Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for a new episode of Anewgo of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrisanthon, and joining me today is my original co-host, our CEO, John Lee.
Hey guys.
We also have a guest today. His name is Timothy Cocaro, and he is the founder and CEO of CanIBuild. Welcome to the show, Tim. It's really exciting to have you on. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you for having me, Anya, and thanks, John, for including me on the podcast. And yeah, I'm glad to be here and have a chat.
So let's start by getting to know you a little bit. So, Tim, if you don't mind giving us your life story, how did you get here and what does your company do?
If everyone hasn't noticed from the accent, I'm from Australia, so that's where we originally founded, and the company that is CanIBuild. We've been developing the application for the better part of 6, 7 years. We've gone to the market about 3, 4 years ago and been growing quite rapidly since then. If you're thinking what CanIBuild is, it's in the name. So can I build this house or shed or garage or pool on a particular parcel of land? And that's essentially what we do. And it's been a pretty enjoyable ride. A little bit about myself. I've been in construction, for better or for worse, my entire life. I started off as a builder. I've been building granny flats, as they're called in Australia. Here locally in the US, they're referred to as ADUs.
Can you explain what
Focused on that.
ADUs are for our listeners? I know what it is, but it's starting to become very popular here, but explain it.
100%. It's definitely a booming industry in the US, given the affordable housing issues that's affecting the US as well as Australia. So ADUs, accessory dwelling units, they're essentially a small little home that can be built in the backyard of a existing dwelling. So they're essentially a secondary dwelling, and they allow families to multi-generational families where kids, unfortunately, if you're living in San Jose, California, it's going to be tough for for kids to move out of their house and purchase their first home. And a lot of people are using ADUs as a way to get a roof over their heads and have an affordable option. And it's definitely booming across the US.
But it's more than just a shed, right? They actually have kitchens and bathrooms possibly in there.
Hey, the she
Uh,
shed.
uh,
The she shed. That's what you say. Yeah.
I need one for my backyard to escape my children and my husband
Right.
sometimes.
100%. It's essentially a small home. It's not a reduced sort of option. I like to describe them as many times a better option than, say, a condo or an apartment, because you still have your parcel of land, you still have a bit of yard space for the kids to run around in. You're typically on. It presents many times on corner blocks as a home, because it's basically facing the streets if it's a corner parcel of land. So it's a viable option for a lot of families to look into, and that's reflected in the numbers. It's definitely booming in California that they've streamlined the rules and regulations around that, and they've obviously that's spreading around the US because the affordability housing issue is not something constrained to any one location nor geographically. It's affecting Australia and everywhere around the world, and it's probably one of the only government initiatives that's genuinely getting traction because it's building an industry around it. There's interest in the product. It's growing. That's been my background per se from a construction standpoint, but as well as being a builder, I've got a computing science background, which is a bit weird in the construction industry. Not to say construction guys aren't techie, but it's on the rarer side. It is definitely changing, given podcasts like this is talking about new technology and how we can better serve the construction industry. My background has been that sort of duality of computing science, construction, and I've always had an interest in trying to develop a technologically advanced construction approach, because it is a tough job to be in. Construction is a very demanding sort of industry. It's difficult because there's compliance, there's rules, there's regulations, and essentially being on the ground and getting that experience firsthand. That's what was the genesis of CanIBuild, because basically there has to be an easier way to ascertain, am I able to build this house? And it might seem like a presumably simple question, can I build this house? But it's not. It involves budgetary considerations, compliance, visually does it fit on the block of land? And these are the things that, at least with CanIBuild, we're trying to address. And similar companies like your own, John, with Anewgo, we're both trying to make things easier for builders to get things over the line and hopefully get a bit of spare time on the weekend so they don't have to work seven
Right.
days 7 days a week.
Hey, come on. Aren't builders swimming in cash? That's
Oh,
you go home and just the cash everywhere, throwing cash
Yeah,
around.
you're a tech company. You're supposed to have tons of VC funding,
That's
right?
that's right. I came in here on my yacht. So no, look, as you're well aware, it is very demanding. I think there's a lot of dollars involved, which just simply heighten the risk in the construction industry. So an ADU might cost anywhere in 250,000, 300,000. So I think there's a misconception that 300,000 is 300,000 hitting into the savings account of a builder, but they've got a multitude of trades and contractors and suppliers, and there's always that sort of risk. And then in recent times, inflation. So there's a whole host of pressures on the industry, and that's why I feel quite proud about. There's a sense of we're doing something valuable for the industry when they can get a bit more time, secure their margins a little bit better, service their clients a little bit better and easier.
So how are you saving the builders time and money?
I'm sure a lot of your listeners have built a pool before, or a house, a garage, or potentially an ADU. They would have started the whole process with thinking it up, Googling, find me a builder near myself. You're calling a contractor. You're trying to arrange a time sometime between probably next week or the week after for someone to come out and see you. And they're coming up with a scratch pad or a bit of paper and scribbling a few details while they're walking around your parcel of land, thinking what may or may not occur. They'll say something along the lines of, let me get back to you. Let me get back to the office. Let me see what's possible. I'll send you a quote. I can't do it this week. I'll be busy, maybe next week. And before you know it, you're 2 months in and you probably still don't even have a quote. And all this work that the contractor is doing is typically unpaid, because from the client's perspective, all they thought they were doing is, I'm thinking of building a house. I'm trying to select the right contractor for me. So what CanIBuild tries to do is all those steps that's involved in basically answering that presumably simple question in order to get a contract and to get a deal across the line and to start a project, we do that. So on our platform, you could put in an address, visually see the parcel of land, understand the setbacks, understand the topography, be able to drop on the plan, visually see if it fits, work with the client to make sure that's what they want, generate a proposal, and all of this takes 5 minutes. So essentially collapse a couple of weeks worth of work down to 5 minutes visually and intuitive way. It's not a complex application. We're not trying to turn builders into architects or engineers. We're just simply trying to help builders answer that question for their clients. So that's essentially what CanIBuild is, from the hello to the contract, everything in between. That's what CanIBuild tries to do.
And I assume this works worldwide, right? Because what kind of technology are you using behind that's able to pull that information?
Yeah, luckily we've got a very good team that's capable and has produced a product that is versatile enough to be able to work worldwide. Right now, the markets we're specifically servicing is Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and parts of Canada. And that's because it's a big undertaking. There's over 3,000 counties, there's 50 states in the US, there's different HOA requirements, there's a lot of compliance differences between one area and the next. But fortunately, with our system, we've been able to structure it in a way where we can digest this information quite easily. That allows us to be able to automatically show setbacks and automatically understand what you're trying to build and the rules and regulations that apply to that specific build. So while we can conceivably work worldwide, because the issue is the same issue in Germany as it is in the United States, as it is in another corner of the world, everyone is trying to figure out, am I able to build this house or pool or shed on a parcel of land? And CanIBuild can answer that. But right now, our markets are the US, Australia, New Zealand. And that's because while our team is growing quite rapidly, our team's just over 130 people now, it is a big undertaking to solve the world's construction issues. And the United States is a very big place. And we've got our hands full right now servicing quite a few clients in the US, which I'm excited about.
So what are your typical clients like? Are they builders? Are they renovators? Are they individual homeowners?
Our clients are builders. So basically, it could be a homeowner, it could be an architect, it could be an engineer. And we do have a few of those as clients. But realistically, our core client base is made out of anyone that's building a house or a modular or a manufactured home or a pool or a garage or a shed. Those are the primary build types that we're focused on right now. And that's the speciality of what CanIBuild does. It's where we have most of the rules and regulations and the data layers that affect that. So typically our client is someone that is using our platform to better serve their client, the homeowner thinking of building. It's less about renovators, so it's not about kitchen renovations or people that are doing external cladding options or things like that. That being said, we do have landscapers, we do have roofers, but again, our typical client is that builder that's building all the homes that we're currently sitting in. And that's our typical clients. To mention a few names, in the construction industry, we have Schumacher Homes. In the modular, we've got Boxable. In the pool, we've got San Juan Pools, we've got Blue Haven Pools. So we've got a myriad of very large brands, franchises, individual contractors, from building one home or a handful of homes a year, all the way to a couple of thousand.
So with the builders, are you primarily servicing individual build on your land, one parcel, one lot, or as well as large community developments? And do you work with developers as well?
It's yes and yes. Our primary focus is mostly on scatter lot builders, such as Schumacher or Red Door, more in terms of that specific APN or address where a homeowner might find the parcel of land themselves, or it's a spec style development. Less about track home builders. So it's less about the DR Horton and the Lennars and the huge estates. That being said, the system, particularly in Australia, there's a bit of a difference between Australia and the US. Australia's land developers don't cut up the subdivision as well as build a house. They just cut up the subdivision, and then the contractors and the builders essentially on-sell the land for their specific projects. In the US, it's a bit different, where the KBs, the Lennars, the DR Hortons go from end to end. So in Australia, we do a lot of developments and have a lot of partnerships with developers, less so in the US, unless one of our clients have a one-off subdivision, and then CanIBuild can handle that. But again, our primary focus is scatter lot builders.
Over here at Anewgo, we're very focused about the customer journey experience. So I've played around with your app, and you've also given me a demo, and I've done it online. And I'm very impressed with how easy it is to find any parcel of land in the US and just type in the address or use the map. And then I can find the homes that I want, and I can place it on there using the floor plan, and I can see the setback from the edges of the property line. Also know that you can also look at the topography of the land, and that factors into the location as well as maybe the cost of developing that land. So maybe from a customer standpoint, the homeowner, how does your application, your tool, improve the customer journey and experience?
It is a good question, and I think very similar to Anewgo, basically trying to improve that user experience and that client experience. So typically, our clients are the contractor. Their clients are seeking an answer to that question. So I'm thinking of building this house. Can I? And that can I question is really, can I afford it? Does the type of home that I want comply on my parcel of land? Visually, how does it look? And when they're asking the question, they're asking it thinking genuinely. The answer's quite quick. It's going to cost this. Yes, we can. Let me get back to you with the paperwork. But it's the opposite of that. So it involves surveyors and engineers and architects and sketch plans. And many times the clients see that floor plan on the block of land and they're saying, that's not, I thought I wanted that, but now that I see it, I don't. And there's back and forth. And that's why it's a very prolonged sales process, which exhausts both parties because there's a lot of friction. And the client might be thinking, this contractor is going slow and they're not responding quickly, but there's a time that's required to get these answers back. And then the contractor just wishes everyone just signed on the dotted line with zero questions. So I think what CanIBuild does to improve that journey, clients can immediately see different options, different ideas, see what's possible, how large of a build are they able to fit on that parcel of land. And by having these questions answered in a matter of minutes in a visually intuitive way, you save genuinely weeks worth of back and forth, and everyone wins. The client has a clear picture of budget, what they can afford, what they can't afford, and what it might look like. And the contractor is able to get through the sales process a lot quicker. So I think it's a win, that situation. I think that's what CanIBuild as a platform facilitates to both parties. In a typical day on CanIBuild, we're doing over 30 30,000 lookups. So out of our client base, there's about 30,000 of individual people every day looking at a parcel of land and basically answering that question, can I build that house? So it's amazing how many people are just genuinely asking the question. And I keep on telling anyone that I speak to, if you're driving to work or you're flying on a plane, look down and see all those little houses. That's each of those houses. Someone at some point said, "Can I build this house there?" So there's a large demand, and there's benefits even for the cities, because the better you can understand the compliance, the better you can understand the rules and regulations, the more you can submit submittals to the city that are more closely aligned to the rules and regulations. Things tend to speed up. So basically, that reduction in friction is probably one of the strong points of CanIBuild.
Yeah. So I actually have a personal experience of going through something like that, where before we ended up with our house, my husband and I were looking for a home, and we thought potentially about building. And so we found a piece of land for sale, but it was like in a wooded area. So I remember we're like, okay, can we or can we not? And so we ended up purchasing the land. Luckily, we had the contingency in there that we could do our due diligence to figure out if it was actually buildable. And we found a builder that we liked and went through the process. Like you said, they had to get somebody over there, and it was a kind of a long process. And in the end, turned out that it wasn't ideal scenario for the home that we wanted. So luckily, we were able to get out of the contract. But it was definitely like, wow, okay, all of that. And it was, a lot of time driving around, a lot of time invested picking, like, because we essentially had to commit to a floor plan in a way before we know if it's
exactly,
okay, is this something that we can even do? So can you talk more about the tech itself? Because I can't even imagine how many points of information you have to have in there in order for it all to work. I assume it's probably using some kind of a geographical locator first, and like where the plots are located, but then all the rules and regulations, setbacks, even like municipality for municipality. A lot of ADUs, for example, they may not allow them in Pennsylvania, where in California that would be allowed. So I'm just curious, how are you able to get so many different points of information in one system? And I assume it has to be pretty accurate, otherwise people wouldn't be using it.
100%, and it's genuinely a good question. So the approach we took, there's a lot of systems out there, and cities have these systems as well, where you can go to the city website and type in your address, and it's a data dump of all the data layers and all the layers that affect that parcel of land. That's great if you can interpret all those data layers, right? But if you're a homeowner and you're thinking about purchasing that parcel of land with a lot of trees on it and asking that question, when you go to the city website, that doesn't mean much. So we're not about simply data loading data layers arbitrarily and then just showcasing that to the user. So the tech behind it, essentially, to be able to answer that question, can I build this house, is the following. Number one, we understand what you're trying to build. So we don't just drop in the floor plan image. We understand that this is an ADU. This is a house. This is a double-story house. This is a swimming pool that's in ground or above ground. So the first is we basically align the build types with how the rules and regulations work. So then we can match what they're building with the rules that link to that build. Second to that, we've got a very large team that is just focused on importing a whole lot of data layers into the system, but then we interpret those data layers. So we don't just simply load in a hydrocarbon data layer and then or the migration patterns of birds. Like we make sure that the data layer relates to an ADU. So say, for example, a flood layer, is that flood level too high to allow for an ADU, or the flame zone, etc. So basically, when you go onto the platform, we can show yes or no. Basically, we're trying to end up with a quick answer. So from a tech perspective, even the search bar, you mentioned geospatial and Google, we actually don't use Google for our georeferencing. We don't use Google because, believe it or not, Google's pretty late to the party with new parcels of land. So you may have noticed when you're driving, especially in rural areas or in new subdivisions, the road names start to disappear from Google Maps. So they might be able to locate you. So we've had to develop our own, which is a significant investment. We handle our own data parcels. We get that directly from the government. So in summary, in layman's terms, we're a geospatially based application that is big data loading in a whole host of data layers, and programmatically, we're marrying it all together. So if you think about it as sheets of paper stacked up together, our geolocator finds the parcel of land, pieces all those layers, relate it back to the build that you're proposing, and then attempts to answer yes or no.
Mhm.
So hopefully that explains to listeners what we try to do, but we basically try to hide all that complexity behind the very simple ethos of all I want to know if I can build it, yes or no. So we've got a tick or an X or a question mark. A tick is yes, an X is no, and the question mark is it might be dependent on a bushfire consultant being engaged to be able to address some nuance or something like that.
Probably should have started with this, but there's a little bit of a backstory how we got together here. And I don't want to name any names. The holy grail for our industry is to allow the buyers to be able to find, design, experience, and then ultimately be able to buy online. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with that since the homes don't exist. So we have to show it virtually, but also a lot of the pricing and costs aren't in there. One of the builders that we have in common as a client said, hey, why don't you two put your stuff together? Because a lot of people think about the design part as a critical element, which it is because you're personalizing it. But that fine part is not only finding the plan that you like and the lifestyle in the community that you want to live in, but it's finding that property that goes with that house, because land is the raw ingredient for every home. And it's a unique raw ingredient, unique costs, unique specifications, unique requirements. And that was the one piece, and unfortunately that one piece is a starting gate for a lot of the fine design experience and buy online customer journey that I really wanted to pursue. We've created a Anewgo marketplace, which you've seen, where we can show all the homes and communities and plans and build on your land and all the builders around the country. But we cannot show it specifically for specific home sites. And that's where you come into the picture with that technology, which, there are a lot of other companies out there that are in land development that use GIS, geographical information systems. But the way that you're able to pull all that content, all that data, some of that stuff, like you're saying, doesn't even exist on public domains. And some of that stuff is not open source for you to, I don't want to get too techy here, for you to be able to customize, for you to be able to do that at a massive scale in the time that you have, and be able to now take the visualizations that us or other companies can potentially provide, as well as yourself, to be able to put that plan on that home site, see how it fits, see how it looks, and then see what it costs to now take it to the design experience and buy online steps. It's extraordinary from my perspective. And I think with a lot of the new technologies coming out there, because both of us are tech guys, so we can, maybe it's good that we push this to the end, because a lot of people probably would have zoned out if we talked about it too early. But with some of the technologies with AI that actually can help put these pieces together at a massive scale, so that maybe, and we haven't talked too much about this, but I can envision one day that the buyers expressing their ideal home site and location and be next to a pond and have some hills nearby and 2 acres. And then they're also saying what builder can build there and what architects can design that house. And then what plans can I look at and what points of interest, to be able to express that to AI and let the AI be the massive matchmaker that brings all of our content from, we're different companies, but that's the beauty of what AI can do right now, is it's able to look across multiple websites and channels and then synthesize that information, particularly for each buyers. I have this particular meal that I want to eat tonight. It's different from anyone else, but it's all from the same restaurant, but it configures it uniquely for us, for me. That's why I think the potential that we can put together with the technology that we have.
I couldn't agree more. And I think you've touched on a few points. So yes, the holy grail, the end vision, if we go from the end point of what all of this is going to transpire to, is essentially that sort of buy now button on a contractor's website, or that the end user can go put their address in, get an understanding, use AI to gather all those differing information points, and essentially say, yes, that's what I want, and buy now. And it might sound incredible now, and I might say, oh, would I really buy a house online? Would I really purchase it? But I think the answer is yes. I'm sure if we go back 10 years ago, would someone have bought online a car? And they say, no, I have to test drive it, I have to touch it, I have to feel it, I have to go there. That's no longer the case. And even much of the success of Tesla, I think, is the distribution model where people can easily go online, configure, purchase, and pick up the car. And I think housing is no different. It's going to start with the more simple housing types, the more modular, the more prefab, but then it's going to evolve into ADUs and smaller and houses and affordable houses. And it's going to get to that point because in the end of the day, everyone is wanting to do things from the comfort of their own home. We can't crisscross the entire nation to find the right parcel of land for our family or state or the area. We don't have access to all the information. Even if you can find the land, you've got 1,000 questions thereafter. Where's the architect? Where's the contractor? Where's the home? Where's the floor plan? So I think we are definitely on that step. And even with our mutual clients, it's exciting to work with clients. And I think with their prevalence on social media that, and they won't mind us giving them a plug of Impress and Modular. They're doing a lot to push and get this across the line, this buy now button. So it's incredibly exciting. And I think we are at a turning point because the industry as it is now is highly fragmented. It's fragmented because contractors can only generally work at close proximity from their office because they're only able to understand the rules and regulations around their office. And then that's why there's such a fragmentation of small builders. And I think AI is going to change the game. I think we'll start seeing builders that can expand their borders, reach out further and further afield, and get more and more jobs and more builds with less human capital involved. You won't need a team of thousands just to be able to build thousands. So I think that's all really exciting. And then they'll start injecting more money into R&D. Because if a home builder can do more with less, they can start investing more in R&D. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's held back construction from R&D perspective. Builders are always stretched. I mean, if you want to double sales, in most builders' mind is they have to double the sales team, double the back office, double the operations.
You use twice as much.
Twice as much, and they have to...
Exactly, and it doesn't scale. And
it doesn't scale well.
But I think, from a customer home buyer's perspective, they do want to buy new homes. They do want to shop online. They do want to have a little element of DIY to go and try out different looks and feels and price things out. The problem is the technology platform hasn't been there. And even though some technologies may work independently, but like I said, if AI can come in there and you can express what you want, what it really does to improve the customer experience, it reduces the risk, the frustration, the pain. And part of that frustration is that you cannot see it, or you cannot communicate with it or purchase it multimodally. What I mean is it's not just what the numbers say financially or the descriptions and all that, but you need to see it on the map. You need to see that color scheme. You need to see the way you designed it at that price. And AI and even voice, AI can continue that conversation over multiple sessions throughout the customer journey and across different channels multimodally. Because I think that visual part, because the products don't exist and it uniquely exists only for you and on your unique piece of property, if we can put all that together or let AI put it together, and then even learn from that for better predictions for people that have expressed things like this is what you should show, I think it will revolutionize our industry.
I genuinely agree. And I think what you're describing is essentially the over-the-wall design methodologies. If you imagine metaphorical walls, and at the one side of the first wall is the sales consultant or sales rep talking to the client, they're getting a few bits of few details, they're throwing it over the wall to the architect's drawing something, throwing it back over, the client saying that's not what I wanted, they tweak it goes back over the wall. Now the architect throws it to the estimator and quotes it up, throws it over the wall, the client has a heart attack and says that is definitely not that's, if I had known this, I would have changed this. So now they have to go back to the architect and change it. And I think that's the multimodal aspects that you're referring to. And if
we break down those walls, those silos, it's real time. Everybody's on the same page, can see the same thing. They can be part of the same conversation thread, even from an instant messaging standpoint or sharing standpoint. We still have a long ways to go, but that's my roadmap for what we want to do with Anewgo. And I think it's pretty consistent with what you're envisioning could be. And obviously the builders that really want to grow at scale, but would not grow their costs and their resources. This is probably the long-term approach.
100%. It's exciting to speak to someone like yourself, John, because I think we're both on the same trajectory and the same thought patterns. But what's more exciting is after many decades, I think the industry has reached that point. I think there's a few things that happened even with COVID. I think COVID supercharged technology in the construction industry because overnight they potentially couldn't have gone to sites, they can't speak to clients. So then they've gone into, okay, we're going to have to put it on the web, we're going to have to share things electronically. I'm sure before COVID, you say to most contractors, let's have a meeting on Zoom like we are now, and they'll go, how about
What
we
is that?
don't? Yeah. And I think construction had a culture shock because they were
Right.
very manila folders and they had filing cabinets on all the piece of paper, and then they realized I have to put it all on Google Drive and OneDrive, and it just supercharged that ethos. And then in conjunction with inflationary pressures, the industry is left with little choice but to really question some of the things that they thought this is the way we've been building this way since the pyramids, and that has to change. It just has to, because I have never met a builder that has said, "Oh no, construction's easy. I'm making tons of money and I'm just leaning back on my chair and watching it roll in." No, the builder's just working 7 days a week, 24 hours. For smaller builders, the partner is roped in to working into the business and helping out with the bookkeeping or helping out with the business and sales, etc. And I think in conjunction with AI, you've mentioned AI a few times, the reality is AI does things a lot better than humans in certain respects. And some of those things is digest a 100-page compliance document from the city and be able to connect the dots and answer very quick questions as to, what's the setbacks.
Right.
And that might not sound like a giant leap, but it is, because the alternative is the contractor first has to go to the website, troll through a terrible website, typically from the city, find that document, turn to page 73, read a very convoluted 10 paragraphs just to be able to see, okay, it's 4 feet. You know what I mean?
And then communicate it back.
Yeah. And then the client says, but you said 3. I said 3 because that was my best guess at the time. And then you go
Right.
the whole back and forth. So definitely AI is going to revolutionize all industries, but specifically construction. I think it's going to have a massive impact because it's such fertile ground. Fintech and the finance industry has gone through a lot of technical revolutions. In construction, if you had to name the largest technical revolution in the last 10 years in construction, you'll be hard pressed to say it's this. It's that. In retail, it's
Exactly.
online retailing. In finance, it's the ability to transact from the comfort of your own home and touch and go and pay and all the rest of it. Construction fundamentally is.
I've been in this industry since 2001, and I would dare say it was technology last. And I think we're coming into an era where construction may have to become technology first, not only because their buyers are tech savvy and expect that with everything else they purchased online, from cars to their shoes, but also I think they've squeezed as much juice out of human resources as they've come as they could. So they reached a point of diminishing returns with human capital.
Yeah.
So now they have to put their capital into technology to take everything that humans can do and do it at superhuman speed, capability, knowledge, and processes. Yeah.
100%. I think on that point, I think most builders have seen technology as a tool, as like a hammer, as opposed to a method to improve or change the game.
Transform your whole business.
That's right. I've seen it more. Oh, look, I'm technologically versed. I've given my staff iPads. That's
Right.
That's not what technology is. Do you know what I mean? Technology is, okay, currently we're doing this in this method and it's taking this long and it's costing this much. That's unaffordable. That's uneconomical. That's not scalable. How can we halve that? And start investing in that technology as a pathway to changing your mode of business, as opposed to I use a spreadsheet or I'm using an Airtable to share information with my trades.
Right.
It has to be beyond just using it as random tools. So
it really needs to be strategic now. It cannot just be tactical, independent productivity. It needs to be your whole organization, top down, a long-term investment, and it may require, I hate to say this, tearing up your old processes, your old systems, and making a whole new go of it. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But maybe can you build it? Maybe they'll come.
Yeah. And I think it will, because it's reached a point of no choice. You can see the stress in a lot of the contractors' faces. You can see the anguish in trying to figure out how to move forward. And I like to tell clients, there's just basically one fundamental question that's going to predicate whether you survive or you thrive or you demise. And it's going to be technology. And I say, look, close your eyes and imagine 10 years from now, how do you think the normal consumer will engage a builder and design a house?
Right.
I'm sure you're imagining something revolutionarily different from what it is today. If that's the case, then you know it's going to happen. It's just a question of when, which means you can start leading into that direction, or you can hope to play catch up. And the problem with catch up, it's a really tough catch up when something fundamentally changes. And I usually refer to Tesla not because I'm like Elon Musk or a disciple of
We all love Elon
Tesla
Musk.
or anything like that. But all the car industry saw Tesla
Right.
about. It's not like it was a surprise. It's not like he was doing it covertly. And look, as a car manufacturer has spawned almost to the surprise of competitors. So that gives you an idea of how hard it is to catch up and change and modify if you're an incumbent, so much so that you can allow a new startup to almost take over. And I think construction is no different. There's going to be large incumbents right now that just can't understand how this contractor that started just last year is starting to get 10 sales a month, 30 sales a month, 50 sales a month. And I say, how are they doing? Oh, they're going to collapse. They'll take no, because they've just done it a different way.
We've seen it with taxi cabs getting disrupted by Uber overnight. We've seen it with blockbusters totally dominating the video rental industry, and then Netflix overnight destroyed them. And there's no more of them anymore. So I do think once technology proves itself, because technology in its very nature is scalable, it can go viral and scale very quickly. Whereas if you continue your current processes, even if your customers like it, you will never be able to keep up with it because you're always hindered by legacy manual processes. And frankly, the longer you take to adopt, the more entrenched you are probably in your legacy systems, which is even harder to catch up. And the other problem is technology is accelerating faster than it's ever have. So the window to catch up is getting shorter. And the ones that have started out of the gate first, they're going to be magnitudes ahead.
Yes. And I strongly believe that. And I speak to out of your listeners, I'm sure there's many that's going to go, I've heard all this before. And
it's okay. The ones that really believe in us are still listening. The ones that have left us,
that cut off. They go, these guys are insane. They don't know what they're talking about.
Exactly. That's why I say this to the end. The true believers will still listen.
Yeah, but it's even if I dumb down the conversation to some simple examples, because I've been in many of their shoes. How many times has someone driven to site to speak to a client, driven up to the parcel of land, took one look out the window and go, I can't build here because of one reason or the other. You've just wasted 2 hours of time. You can't tell the client, the potential client, oh, I can't do this and get back in your car and drive. You have to do that song and dance for this.
Yeah, you have to appease them and console them.
And now you've just wasted a whole day unpaid, only because you didn't have the technology or the new method to be able to say, let me quickly check this. Can I build a house here? No, I'm going to tell the client, look, unfortunately, for this reason, let me show you the information so you're better aware. So in Anya's case, purchasing that parcel of land could have avoided the contract, the due diligence, the builder's analysis, choosing a floor plan, getting the consultants, only to say, you do realize these are natives and they're protected, and your buildable area is this, and you won't be able to do that floor plan. And you're going, oh, the disappointment. And then in the back of your head, you're thinking, surely that first builder should have known. Not really. And then you went through this whole path. So there's many easy examples to draw from that sort of explain it's not as something has to change. There has to be a different method. There has to be a different way. And the last thing I ask your listeners to question, especially if they've been in the construction industry for a while, just look to your children and see how they're interacting with the world today. My children, at least, very rarely say, I want Joe's Pizza. They're saying, can we go on Uber Eats and get something? They're stuck on TikTok for the digestion of information. They never want to call me. They only SMS me. They only message me on Discord and others. They are online 24/7. The world has changed. So when just imagine, add 10 years to your kid's age, how do you think they're going to be wanting to engage a builder? So we've got very short time, and 10 years might sound like that's 10 years. 10 years is tomorrow. Because if you don't start making the changes, what will happen is you don't just find out in 10 years. On the 10th year, you're just closing the door. On year 5, you're looking left and right and not understanding why your sales are going down, why it's tougher, why you're struggling to get sales consultants. You start realizing everything is just tougher. And then it's just too late because you might double down and you might say, okay, I'll just double my Google budget and I'll try to get more leads and I'll try to do more things to compensate for basically the industry changing course. So I think we are at a pivotal point where I think all your listeners, all your clients, or all your potential clients, our potential clients, really have to seriously just ask, let's just take one step in a new technological way, as opposed to using Anewgo or us as a tool. How can we just do it differently? Because I don't think anyone is going to say the way we do it now is easy.
Definitely not.
I think we can all agree on that. And it's exciting to be in the space at this point in time. I think anyone that was in technology 20 years ago, 30 years ago in construction would have had a tougher run of it because they would
Definitely. I
wouldn't even be able to go on Zoom.
10, 15 years to get to this point, to be in the position to capitalize on technology.
100%. But it's exciting. It is genuinely exciting because it's fertile ground. And the benefit for most of our clients is the sky's the limit because no one has dominated, no one has changed the game yet. And like our mutual clients, they're looking to dominate the game. They're looking to change the game, but there'll be more and more. You know what I mean? And there's especially in the modular space, because even the modular space, you already have to be a bit forward thinking to be in the prefab modular manufactured space because you're already questioning, surely there's a better way to build than literally they call it stick builds.
Right.
Surely there's a better way or a quicker way. And so I think things are changing. And I think on the back of modular and prefab, and there's going to be a lot of changes. And I think that's going to shift the whole industry into having to change the game.
I agree with you both. At least it makes me feel like the two of you have it figured out. So we'll keep this conversation offline and we'll keep you guys posted. Tim, thank you so very much for being on today's show. It's been such a enlightening conversation. And Tim, if people want to learn more about CanIBuild, what's the website? Tell us where you hang out on social media. Where can people connect with you personally if they have any questions as well?
We're all very contactable. So if you want, you can go to canibuild.com, understand a little bit more about the business. If you email sales@canibuild.com, one of our team members will definitely reach out and do a free demonstration and show what the product can do. I'm on LinkedIn, so Timothy Cocaro, you can send me a message and I'd love to have a chat. I don't know if it's the Aussie in me, but I'm pretty generous with my time and I'm happy to have a chat with anyone that's got something interesting in the works or wanting to push. And in a similar way as John reached out to me, we're both within the same space, but it's a big space, so we're looking to collaborate. Whether you're a potential client thinking, hey, talk more about this hocus pocus of a new way or Anewgo or a CanIBuild, and you can definitely reach out to us. So that's canibuild.com. Me personally, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and we'll love to be able to either demonstrate the product or have a chat.
Perfect. And Tim, before I let you go, any last thoughts, anything that I did not ask you today that you think is important for our listeners to know?
I think probably the only thing I'll leave the listeners is if you're contemplating doing a change or you're contemplating and adopting technology, whether it's Anewgo or CanIBuild or something else, take one step. If you hesitate, just take one step, whichever direction that step is, and I guarantee you won't regret it because that one step will give you enough feedback loop to say, hey, that worked quite well, and you'll take another step. So if you're watching TV and you're looking at all this AI and ChatGPT and it feels overwhelming and you say, well, I'm not techie, just take one step. All it is one step. Don't try to overhaul everything on day one, overhaul one thing. And even if it's an exposure to AI, just go to ChatGPT. There's a free account. Go in there and just write this email better. Copy and paste your text and just see how things can be done better. And when you start doing that, it'll lead to a second, it'll lead to a third, and it'll lead to a fourth. And hopefully then it'll lead to an email to Anewgo or canibuild.com and engaging us.
I totally concur with you about taking one step. Even us as technology companies, I think you're probably the same way because we don't have vast resources and we don't have unlimited time. I don't go running full speed ahead, wait until I crash into a wall. I take one step. Nice thing about one step versus running full speed is you can pivot. Take one step, you can pivot, change direction, and move on. So
100%.
don't take a crash course. Take.
Great
I
advice.
agree.
And Tim, thank you so very much for being on today's podcast. Really appreciate your time. As I
Loved
said,
it.
it's been very, very stimulating, enlightening conversation. I'm sure our listeners are going to love that. Sounds like the two of you are going to be in touch. So I can't wait to hear a part 2 of this podcast.
100%. Really appreciate the reach out, Anya. Love chatting with yourself. And thank you, John, for the inclusion. And thank you, listeners, for listening to a bunch of people just ramble on about technology and what it can do for you. So look, really
They'll look
appreciate
back on this
everyone's time.
in 5 years and pull up on YouTube and say, those guys were darn
They were onto something. They were onto something.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well,
Thanks,
I'll talk
everyone.
to you guys later. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.